What's up, YouTube? Back at it again. Uh, Today was kind of a crazy day. I was over at, I'm here back at Penn State. Just got back. First time filming here. Last two episodes are at my house. I'm actually at the Arboretum, for those who know Penn State. It's this little, like, garden area, so hence the beautiful background. Couldn't really get anywhere inside. Got a roommate and all that jazz, but yeah, I don't have lighting or any of that stuff either. But, alright, so today is, little introduction video. I feel like I should go a little bit deeper into like who I am, sort of why I'm starting this podcast, my story of sobriety, why I got sober, how I got sober, what sobriety means to me. I'm in a garden, so people might be walking around and whatever, but it's fine. And yeah, so you know, people coming over. Yeah, so I mean, my story started out like probably like how a bunch of other people started. I mean, I might have even been, you could consider me more on the late end. I didn't have my first sip of alcohol or use of drug until I was 17. It was March when I was 17, about sophomore year of high school. Yeah, smoked weed for the first time. Loved that shit. Had a great time. It was the only time in my life that I actually got blacked out, woke up and didn't remember how I got there. That never happened again, sort of ironically enough. Typically you hear about all these stories with sobriety and everything, and you're like, oh, yeah, a bunch of blackouts in a row. But no, not really much of a blackouter. I mean, I've had my fair shares, but this was the first. And then from there, it was sort of just, typical high school stuff. I mean, we were all just excited to go get blasted every weekend. I mean, that was like sort of the main goal. Let's go out, get wasted, have a good time. Me and the boys, Four Locos, all that stuff, And then it was all sort of childish. I started seeing maybe a little bit of a change in my behavior, a little bit of less of a care for things like school and whatnot, stuff like that. But nothing really dramatic happened until my senior year of high school. Right during the beginning of the football season, I actually got diagnosed with this heart condition and was basically told, I can't work out the way that I like to anymore. More specifically, I can't play football anymore, and I can't do workouts that are associated with football. And that was sort of a crazy time because then I had to go sort of finesse some medical records to kind of allow me to sort of stay on, and not even really finesse medical records. I just went to another place that didn't pick up on the heart murmur, whatever. Played again my senior year, and after that I couldn't do this program that I always had done right after school in the wintertime. And that program was, weightlifting with all my friends and stuff. So I've been doing it, my entire life. I either had basketball, sports all summer, all year round, literally all year round, always had sports. And a lot of kids grow up like that in America. And so when I had that taken away from me, it was kind of a weird time in my life. And, senior year's coming along. I'm not really sure where I want to go to school. And I'm kind of stressed and whatever, this heart thing. And then sort of around winter time, after the football season had ended, it all just started just spiraling. And then I started getting into psychedelics, stuff like that. Fun story with that one. But, once I got into psychedelics, that's when things started taking a pretty dramatic turn because, I had basically, a bad trip, and that really, really, really fucked me up. Like, really fucked me up. People talk about, like, bad trips, you learn stuff. I mean, I fucking guess you learn shit, but goddamn. I mean, I almost died. I seriously almost died. Probably should have died. I wouldn't even say probably. Definitely should have died. But, grace of something, I didn't die. So that was a pretty brutal time. It was right at the end of high school, and I'm like, shit, where am I going to go with life? I'm starting at Penn State. I just decided on Penn State, and it's like my mind's all over the place. And I kind of was in this weird stage where I had this summer job out in Northeast Philly. My uncle gave me the job. I'm working for him. It's 5 days a week, 9 to 5, the grind. It's an hour drive each way. So really, I didn't have time to, fuck around with drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. And so I was just like a casual drinker again. It sort of like felt like I had it all under control, you know? I'm making money. You know, I feel like I'm more productive than a lot of people in my, in my friend group and all that stuff. I feel pretty proud of myself. And then it started, then I came to Penn State. And for those of you who do not know Penn State, I mean, if you got an alcohol problem that's boiling in high school, that shit's going to exemplify when you're alone at Penn State. I can promise you that. If you don't get that shit checked before you come to college, you're going to get your ass wrecked. Pun intended, motherfuckers. But, it was a crazy time. I mean, like, Penn State football was popping off. I mean, those games were great. I was getting shit-faced all the time. Every weekend, go to the tailgates. You got heaters in the tents. You go to bed at 3 a.m. You wake up at fucking like 7 a.m. You start drinking again. It's just, you look around, and if you surround yourself in that circle enough, and that circle's pretty big, it can seem like the norm. And to a certain extent, it kind of is the norm at Penn State a little bit. And so, that sort of just trickled down into this, till one day, a buddy of mine, I told him, damn, I'm kind of out of energy. I need like a little pick-me-up. You got anything for me? And he gave me some Adderall, So seemingly everybody's prescribed Adderall, right? I mean, especially at university, everybody's got a prescription. I took that fucking pill, and it was like, oh, damn, I forget what that movie is. That one where he takes that one pill, though, And I felt like I was unstoppable. I really felt like I was on top of the world. And I didn't have to sleep until like 1 a.m. It was just this rush in my whole entire body. I never felt so free and so good in my entire life. It was just like all the pain or whatever in my life, it just all together came as one. And I just felt just bliss, excitement, pure joy. After feeling like, this was after I was up till 3 a.m., woke up at like 7, continued drinking, probably was still drunk, absolutely tired, took the pill at about 2 p.m., and then I was fucking rolling, rocking and rolling until like 2 a.m. No problems. And then after that, it was like, okay, well, I fucking love this drug. How can I keep taking that drug? And that was really the beginning of it all. So this is fall of, oh shit, what was it? Fall of 2019. Yeah. That's when I first got introduced to, really trying new drugs again after my psychedelic experience. And so after that, I'm hooked. I mean, I'm asking everybody and anybody who's got an Adderall prescription. Some of my friends know, because I asked you guys to get me some of that. I mean, it got to a point where when I would come home just so that I could go into, my sister's cabinet, and I would take apart her pills. I would take out about half of the beads that come into like one of those extended release Adderall pills. I would take out like half of those beads, put them in like my little pill capsule so that, like little container, so that I could like dip my finger in there and take the drugs throughout the day. It got to that very, very quickly for me. It went from an innocent pill to pick me up after a long tailgate to I'm scrummaging, finessing through people's cabinets to steal their drugs and stuff. And that whole summer, man, it was just a bender. I mean, there was nights where like, and I don't know how well people might have known this. I mean, I feel like maybe not, but like, I mean, I would be up until like 11 a.m., 10 a.m. And then I would go to bed and I would wake up at like 1 p.m. and obviously feel, fucking miserable. So what is the first thing that I do? Pop some more Adderall. And then that trend got really, really damaging physically and mentally after a couple of months. Your body, I mean, you need sleep, you need proper energy. And those are the sort of the first things that go away when you start taking these sort of drugs, stimulants or whatever kind of drugs that you're into. But I mean, if you're taking them out of control, these are the things that you got to expect to happen. So now I'm going into my sophomore year. I'm still at Penn State that freshman year, going into summer, and that's when at Penn State I got absolutely obliterated for State Patties weekend, and I just tore the walls down of my dorm. Literally just tore the walls down. Like, I went around and was headbutting the walls, telling my best friend Blaine, who was on the first podcast, like I was telling him, like I want to kill you and I want to kill myself. That's the point it got to, because of where my mental state was. You know, taking all these drugs all the time, I was just beating myself up. I couldn't think or anything. And it was just a brutal, brutal, dark time. And you know, it got to the point where Blaine, you know, kudos to him, he couldn't even you know, he didn't feel safe being around me, and he didn't feel like I would be safe on my own. So it took him calling the police to come get me. And I remember the officer was in there with me in the dorm room, and I'm crying my eyes out, losing my mind, talking all this crazy shit about wanting to die, wanting to kill. It's just crazy, crazy stuff. The cop, you know, he calmed me down. He was a good guy, and he brought me to the hospital where they put me on you know, sedatives and whatever to calm me down. And that was the second time I was in the hospital for something like that in about, you know, almost a year. So not much of a turnaround before I was right back onto my, you know, onto that same sort of wave again. And then, so after that, that summer came along, and, you know, I mean, I was just a fucking mess. I was really, because nobody trusted me anymore. I mean, in my family and stuff, and like rightfully so, you know? And so I'm just filled with all this fucking anger all the time. I'm just mad. Just mad. And I'm blaming everything on everyone else, and I'm not making any changes. And I started running away from home and stuff. You know, it would just be like bullshit. Like I would just yell, like I'm gonna go leave. I'm gonna go live somewhere else. And I would like pack my bag while I was all drunk and fucked up and start like walking, sleeping in like a friend's yard for a couple hours till I sobered up and was like, what am I doing? Would walk back home. And then after that summer, you know, I had the same job again, but it was still, this summer you could definitely notice that things had changed for the worst. And then that led into sophomore year of college. And also we had COVID, so, you know, lockdown. But led into sophomore year, and that's when everything got really, really, really dark. That's when I started trying Xanax. I started trying ketamine. I started just dabbling with, I mean, I would go to parties. I would go to people's homes. I would go into their pill cabinet, and I would just open up pill bottles. I would open up pill bottles and just take whatever. I would just grab a pill. Like, I wouldn't even read what it could do to you, because I would already be drunk and high at that point. And I'm like, oh, I'm losing like my edge. Just crazy, frenzied mind. Like, your mind is just like this the whole time. And so I left, and I would go into their cabinets, and I would just start taking pills, like random pills. And that was a fucking disaster. I mean, there would be times where I would just be in people's yards, just like, I wouldn't even know what I'm doing. I'd be crawling on like all fours. Nobody would even understand what's happening to me. It got scary. And eventually, after that, you know, the winter time came around, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm like a pretty seasonal person. The winter can kind of beat me down a little bit. I mean, I love to ski and everything, but, you know, nothing beats summer. And, yeah, I got really close to my rock bottom, and eventually I sort of hit it. I did hit it. It was, my ex-girlfriend, it was her birthday. And for her birthday, my idea for her was I was going to get her 25 Adderall pills and 25 Xanax pills for her birthday on a Tuesday night. And she had an assignment due. She had like a big work thing. She doesn't want to stay up. She doesn't care. You know, like, she's like, let's just hang out on the weekend, do something fun then. It's cold, it's miserable, I got shit to do. I'm like, nah, let's fucking, you know, making up all this shit just so I can fucking take some drugs. And I took one Adderall pill, and I woke up 4 days later with no pills and barely any memory of what happened. And that's sort of when it hit me. That's when it hit me hard. Because that low that I felt was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. And I've been through some lows. I mean, you go through some powerful lows through addiction and everything that goes with it, if you don't try to stop. And it was through that low that I really, really sort of started thinking. I mean, I was still wrapped up in that, because the first thing that I did was, right after that day when I finally woke up from that blackout, the first thing I did was I went and I found some more Adderall, because I was so low. I mean, you know, it's almost, I can't even really comprehend it even now. Even though I lived it, I almost can't comprehend how low it was. it got to a point where, I mean, I really felt fully detached from reality. I didn't feel like I was a part of this world anymore. It got to that point. And so I was like, I got to bring this back up. I got to get, up again. So took Adderall thinking it would help me. It just made me more anxious, made me cold sweat. And, I started getting really bad stomach problems, had to go to the hospital for that. And through those next 2 weeks was sort of the beginning of the end of my usage. But it was not a graceful one because, I kept on lying. I kept on lying to my ex about how I'm like gonna get sober and everything. And I was like, yeah, I'm like not gonna drink. I mean, literally every day after that, because I was so low, I would just be drinking all day. Then I would be taking Adderall all day. I would take anything that I could all day, all the time. And lie and say that I wasn't. Try to use mouthwash to cover it. Try to take a nap. I mean, I fucking couldn't sleep. But eventually I go home, and when I got home, I was sort of in this weird thing where I was telling people I'm sober, but I'm not, because previously in my life I would go into these little bouts where I'd be like, oh, I'm not drinking. And it's like, okay, buddy, but you're ripping Adderall religiously and you're fucking smoking the reefa and trying all sorts of other shit. And it's like, yeah, it's just bullshit. Just to put on a cover, just put on a show. And yeah, so after that, I'm home, and everybody thinks that maybe I'm not drinking, maybe I'm not using, whatever the story was that I fucking made up at the time. And I get there, everybody's drinking and boozing. I was just kind of had a low-key sort of weird car ride home where I don't feel good, but I gotta go home and see everybody. It's sort of an uncomfortable thing, a little bit anxious. There's a ton of people. It's midnight, so I figure everyone's gonna be asleep. I'm fucking tired. I get there, everybody's drinking, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go. So I'm upstairs talking. I'm really trying to hold off on not drinking. I'm really, really, really fucking trying to not drink. And then it was just I couldn't do it anymore. So I would just be taking runs every 15 minutes or less, probably less most of the time, right down to the basement, fucking crack open a couple of White Claws, rip them real quick, come back upstairs like nothing happened. It's it's just what? I don't even know the games that you play when you're through addiction and all that stuff. It really get to you. All right, back again. Yeah, those games that your mind can play on you, it's so intense. And I got really drunk, and then after that, every day I'm rummaging through pills, trying to find whatever I can, drinking as much as I can, trying to just get through until I'm back at school again. And then one night, my ex, she's like, she said something totally, reasonable, whatever argument it might have been. And I just lose my fucking mind. I go ballistic. I just start pulling up the most, uncensored, unreasonable insults, you name it, right at her, ripping them. She starts crying and yelling at me, so I start crying and yelling at her. And then that's when my dad came in the room. And I was so mad when I saw him. I'm built up with all that rage that was at her and everybody. And I just see him and I'm just so mad. And then he's asking what's wrong, and then something in me, I was just I just broke down. Really, really broke down. Sat down, crying, and I just told him, I need help. Told him that I just need help. And he gave me a hug. I told him about all my problems and everything, all the drugs that I've been using. And he's like, that's all right. It's all right. And then it was after that where I was it's actually kind of funny. The next day I wake up and I got those sort of the scary Sundays. I woke up and I was like, what the fuck did I just tell him? And then I didn't use the next day, because went out New Year's Eve, and my ex, I was like, come on, it's New Year's Eve, you gotta let me drink. I mean, it's New Year's Eve with the fucking boys. I'm not gonna not drink. She's like, if you drink, then we're breaking up. And I was like, all right. And I didn't really think that I was gonna make it, but I made it through that night. And that was the first taste that I had of saying no. Really saying no and meaning saying no. It was the first time where, it might not have been 100% my choice. I might have had influence. I had influences greater than just that. I didn't want to have my ex leave me. So, but that was the first time where, I said no, and I meant it to an extent. And then that was my first day sober. And that was December 31st, 2020, which makes today 2 years, 8 months, and 23 days sober now. Just kind of fucking crazy. Really crazy how the time flies. But, then that's sort of only where, like, the battle begun, but it was a winning battle, It was a fightable battle. The battles that you fight in addiction are unwinnable. You'll never be able to concoct a plan where you will be able to use anything if you have a problem. It's impossible. It's impossible. If you have a problem and you go California sober, if you have a problem and you go California sober, where you're like, I'm just drinking, I'm just boozing, you're going to get fucked up. You're going to get fucked up. You're going to eventually die. It's that simple. There's no real, you can live. You're going to be that guy that, or, that girl or whoever the fuck you are. You're going to be that person that somebody remembers as the fucking miserable drug or alcohol abuser. It's that simple. And so I began, like, my journey in sobriety, and I started with this outpatient treatment that my parents signed me up for. They signed me up for this thing called, I think it's called SoberLink, where you blow into a breathalyzer like twice a day or however many times you set it up. Never really did that. I was kind of bad at that, but I was good at the outpatient meetings. I would go to those, and that was sort of like my introduction. So outpatient, there's inpatient, which is like classic rehab, where you go in, you live with people for X amount of days, you're surrounded by like psychiatrists or whatever the fuck they are, and you learn how to be sober, okay? Then there's outpatient. Outpatient, what I did, not that hard to understand. It was during COVID, so maybe it's actually a little bit different than what it usually is, but we just met over Zoom with a professional who deals with people who are, drug and alcohol users. And that was like the craziest, most eye-opening thing to me, was really, really, really seeing firsthand people who can relate to me. Relate to me in that other sense, though, because while I was drinking and getting fucked up all the time, you obviously relate with a lot of people around you because they're all getting fucked up and everything too. But when you're in that next level of someone who gets fucked up, then you can sort of start seeing like you're different. You're different than the average person who might go get fucked up. You got a problem. You're an addict. And so I'm listening to these stories of these people. You got some people who've been sober for years. You got some people who've been sober for days, like me. And I just kept on showing up, and I would I really got invested in it. And, for better or for worse, it was COVID. I don't really understand, fully myself which would have been better, which would have been worse. Was my addiction amped because of COVID? Was it suppressed because of COVID because nothing was open? It's just, you can paint it a million different ways, but through that, through the sobriety and through those programs, I started realizing and meeting people and really understanding what it means to change, what it means to look at life in a new angle. It was fucking hard too. I would have dreams almost every night of like actually being drunk or being high. I would have dreams of that with like full-blown feelings in my body. I would wake up paranoid that I used the night before, fully convinced that I did. That's how tight this stuff was gripped on my mind. Started building some new habits, started like working out and stuff like that. I actually put on quite a lot of weight when I first got sober. I just sort of, maybe you could call it switching addictions, and it's not that uncommon in the community and all that. Started going to AAs. I'll be honest, I never have had a sponsor. I've never worked the 12 steps. It's something that I have to and want to do in my life. It's just, I really, really got invested in sort of trying to find like the meaning of life and everything. I really got into that stuff. My mom always talks about manifesting and everything. And, my trip abroad this past year, I've been gone for a year, traveling the world, and it's just like, man, from where I was to where I am now, and the things I got to see while I was over there, you know, totally different experience. And I feel like now it's like a totally different person and outlook on life. You know, sometimes I still have the same asshole tendencies. I'm not like this magical person that everybody loves now, you know, maybe even more the opposite now. But I love myself. Like, I can wake up and I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, damn, like, you're doing shit. You're getting shit done. You're going and seeing shit. You're getting in shape now. Stuff that I never could do when I was getting fucked up. I gave up on working out. I would have these panic attacks from my fucking heart. I would think that I'm like having a heart attack because I'm on so much drugs and shit. I just gave up on sports, gave up on working out. I was like, if I'm going to put my heart through stress, I'd rather it be through drugs than working out. And so I just gave up on all that stuff, and now I was just rediscovering all this stuff, and it was like, I mean, literally, like, you can almost feel like you're a kid again. Like, oddly enough, you know? Eventually, I was able to give up nicotine. That was the last one to go. That was about 7 months ago. I was over in Singapore, and again, you know, one of those circumstance things, they have a ban on vapes, and whatever. I even got a tattoo of the thing I quit, is what it is. Yeah, so snooze, all that stuff. That was a ragey time. Good luck quitting nicotine. If, yeah. I mean, you can do it, but, you know, it's fucking hard. Because it's very readily accessible and seemingly harmless. Able to give that up, though, and, you know, now here I am today. And, you know, that's sort of where I want to bleed into this idea of, like, I really, really get a lot of, like, meaning and fulfillment if I could help people out who are like me, or even who think they might be like me or have a friend like me. Because the life that I live now compared to what I was living, I really, like, that saying, you wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy, I really wouldn't. Because it's so dark, it's depressing, it's like there's no hope. It's all just seems, everything is just, you're just waiting to die. You don't care about life. Looking back, it's sad, but it made me who I am today, you know? I had to go through that. That's just, you know, the way my life was set up. And, you know, just because I've been sober for however long I have been doesn't mean that I'm guaranteed to be sober, like I touched upon before, you know? But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to try, you know? And what I want to do is I want to just bring this podcast to people who think about, you know, maybe they want to try it out. Maybe they want to see if, for whatever reasons, you know, maybe you think you're an addict, maybe you think you got a buddy who's an addict, maybe you just think that if I drank one less weekend per month, I'd be able to get a little bit in better shape, so that, like, you know, whatever reason, you know, because I think there's so many benefits to sobriety, you know, especially coming from where I came from. I mean, I feel like I'm especially capable to talk on this subject. I'm trying to think about what else to say here. You know, I gave a rundown on my story about, like, how life changed and all that. It's just, it feels so good. Like, today, I mean, doing stuff, do the stuff that scares you. Okay? That is probably the biggest thing that I'm trying to work on now. Like, waking up this morning, I didn't want to carry this thing. I made it last night at like midnight. Carried it all around campus today, telling people about my podcast so that they can hop on and watch. That shit scares me. But I got in the zone. I started just rolling with it. You know, you get some people that give you like the whatever eye, but I mean, the amount of people that genuinely think that what you're doing is cool, like that stuff just makes you feel good. That's the stuff that you chase with drugs that you can do in real life. Doing the stuff that scares you, that you know that you want to do, is the stuff that you think you can get from drugs, but you can't. It's unsustainable. Do those stuff when you're real, when you're sober, and watch how much betterment you get. I mean, I got so many numbers today from so many cool people who want to help me out. I'm still filming on this goddamn motherfucking iPhone. Still got this fucking mic. Shout out them all. This mic's actually good, but, you know, man, Excited to see where this goes. You never know. You never know. Just keep trying. Try. Go out and do something that scares you. Alright, baby. All cap, no brim. Signing off. Deuce.